Associates, and joining me today will be Tammy Johnson, who is one of our solutions architects based out of our California office. Today we are going to be presenting on Management Reporter, and this is for the more advanced users. So this isn't your intermediate or your beginner class. This is more for the advanced user of Management Reporter. Just a few housekeeping items for today. If you do have questions, we will be answering questions throughout the presentation, and there are a couple of ways that you can ask a question. You can either raise your hand and I can unmute your line. You can ask a question online, or the other way is under the questions section. You can type your question in, and I will go through the questions with Tammy and ask her to answer those, or we'll get back to people on those questions as need be. I also wanted to talk about some current promotions that are going on right now in the Dynamics GP world. Both of these promotions are for the clients who are on GP 2013, the perpetual licensing. The first one is Extender Pack. If you do not own the Extender Pack right now, there's a promotion where it's 50% off the regular license cost. And the second one is perpetual licensing volume discount for additional users for people on GP 2013. And anyone who is looking at 15 to 20 or more additional users, you could be eligible for a discount between 5 to 20%, just depending on the number of licenses that you want to purchase. So you can get with your account manager for details on that if that's something that you're interested in. Both of these offers do expire on June 23rd of this year. And I also want to talk about some upcoming webinars and events that we do have going on throughout the year. You can access any of our webinars and events out on our website through the link that's listed here. But the next one is April 24th. That will be on automated workflows and notifications, and that's going to be presented by one of our ISVs, Ulink. And then May the 13th, there will be Mobile CRM Fuel Sales Productivity. The 15th is Powerhouse Distribution, and May 21st, Better Business Analytics. And you can sign up for any of these webinars out on the website. I also wanted to give a little bit of, or have people know we have a client referral program. We've been getting a lot of interest around this program lately, so I just wanted to remind people about some of the rewards that we do offer. For a company that you referred associates, you could receive a $50 gift card when your referral becomes a qualified prospect with us. And then you can also receive a $500 gift card if that referral becomes a client through a new software sale, or a $250 gift card if that referral is an existing Dynamics client that actually becomes associate's customer. So you can submit any referrals through the link that's listed on this page as well. So with that, I am going to introduce Tammy and let her go through the agenda. Tammy Johnson.
Thanks, Lisa. So we're going to go, I think in some areas we're going to go just a little beyond the basics today in Management Reporter. We've spent a lot of time in the past, I don't know, 18 months or so talking about why Management Reporter or how Management Reporter is different from FRX. And I think we're kind of beyond that now. I think we're to the point where we need to start talking about Management Reporter without mentioning FRX at all. So that's the last time I'm going to say that word. And so I wanted to go just a little beyond the basics, and these may have been things that you've learned during your implementation process. You may have forgotten about them, or you may not know about them. So I just want to kind of go a little beyond the basics and show you some different capabilities. As well, I've got 3 reports that I want to review with you today. The first one is a forecast, and then we're going to look at a balance check report, and we're going to look at a cash flow report. And there are kind of significant things that are built into these types of reports that I just wanted to share with you and make sure that you know about. So with that, we're going to be, we're all demo today. So I'm just going to go into Management Reporter. And so you can see what I've done here is I've just created a folder of report definitions specifically for our webinar today. And so I've created a separate report for each example, and we'll just be kind of launching off the rows, columns, and trees off of those report definitions right here off of my desktop. So where we're going to start here is with wildcards. And I've got a report here called Wildcard Example. And you'll see here, hopefully, there we go. You'll see I've got, it's a pretty typical report, you know, financial account and transaction. We're looking, I think I've got the report that I generated is a drillable report using posted activity. What's significant here is this row. And so just to kind of show you how you can work with wildcards inside of Management Reporter. So you can see the link to financial dimensions here. Now normally you would see an account or a couple of accounts added together. Well, what I've got here is some wildcards. And so in this case, I'm saying I want to see all of the accounts, so I'm filtering on my account segment, that start with a 6. And then the next one here is I want to see everything that starts with 6-1. And then I've kind of taken it out a little further here, and I've actually replaced characters. So I want to see everything that starts with a 6. I don't care what the second character is. I want the third character to be a 2, and I don't care what the last character is. And then on the last line, I want anything that starts with 6 and ends with 0. So in that account segment structure, anything that starts with 6 and ends with 0. So, and this is done in my row. You can do it in your columns as well. So we're going to bring up the report that I generated for this, and you can see what it looks like. So here we go. So here is everything that starts with 6, and I can drill in, and so you can see everything here starts with 6. I didn't do any filtering on my first segment or my third segment. It's all done on my second segment, so I've got kind of everything rolled in here, but you can see it all starts with 6. And then the next one starts with 6-1. And you can see all of these start with 6-1. And then let's go back again. And okay, so here's where we're starting to replace characters in in this case, our account. And so if I click on this, you can see everything starts with a 6, and then the third character in that segment is a 2. And then the last one, everything's going to start with a 6 and end with a 0 in the account segment here, and that's exactly what it's doing. So just some examples of how you can use wildcards when you're creating your reports. You don't have to type every line or you know, do non-printing rows or non-printing columns necessarily to get the accounts that you want. You can just use your wildcards and load them right in. All right, so those are wildcards. So the next thing that I want to talk about, and we'll spend a few minutes on this one, is dimension value sets. And what this does is it allows you to create and save groups of accounts or account segments that you can use over and over again in creating your rows, your columns, and your trees. And so we understand that concept a little bit in using or creating, for example, rows. So we create a bunch of different rows, and we can take that same column here. I've got year-to-date total. I'm going to be using that on a lot of my reports today. So I can just swap out different rows and get different information, or different columns and get different information, kind of using, swapping out different building blocks. And so dimension value set's kind of a different level of a building block. So in this case, I've set up a row called dimension value set. So I'm just going to open that row. And so you can see this looks like a normal row. It's a summary. But you can see here when you look at my link to financial dimensions, it says account and then it says set. So let's drill into that and take a look at what that means. So it's using a dimension value set that I created called sales. And to create that, I just click this Manage Dimension Value Sets and I set them up. So you can see I've got 4 here. Here's the sales dimension value set. And if I click this Modify button, you can see it's just a range of accounts that I've set here. Now in this example, it's one range. It's 4100 to 4142. But if I look at one of the other ones, maybe it's the returns and discounts here. Nope. Here, net sales, there we go. This one will have more than one. So this one has 4100 to 4142, and then minus 4176 to 4192. So this is my sales, this is my cost of sales, and so I've just called this net sales. Or actually, no, this is my returns and discounts. So it's just netting that out for me. And then I can also do this, and we'll see this in a little while, based on other dimensions. So in my case, division. I could maybe do sets for divisions. But you can see how you could create those sets when you're doing different rows in your, for example, in your creating your reports. Sales is typically always going to be the same range of accounts. And so you could take that dimension value set, create a dimension value set, and then use that anytime you wanted to reflect your sales or revenue or whatever it is you're calling it on a particular report. So it makes setting up those reports much easier. So let's go ahead and take a look. And you can see I've got one here for my returns and discounts. And then I calculated my net sales. And then I had a for cost of sales. And then I did a calculation for gross profit. So let's take a look at that report. Okay, so this should be the range that I picked for sales, and I think it was 4100 to 4142, I think was what that range was. And so these are the accounts that have values or numbers posted to them for that range. And so you can see those are all here. And then my returns and discounts, I think that one ended in 4192, and so there's my discounts. And then I calculated that net sales, and then cost of goods sold. And then I calculated my gross profit. So again, ways that you can speed up creating those new reports. You don't have to do account by account. You can set up these different groups and apply those to your reports. And those are called dimension value sets. And you can also get to those if you're in a row or in a tree. You can get them here, manage dimension value sets. So you can create them all and then pick them, or you can create them within in a lookup here of the dimensions that you're going to apply just by choosing to manage dimension value sets and then clicking new. All right, so that's using a dimension value set on a row. I can also use a dimension value set on a tree. So let's take a look at that. So here's my dimension value set tree example. Notice I'm using a different row. I'm using my income statement row, and I'm doing current period and year to date. But I am using the dimension or the reporting tree that I call dimension value set tree example. So let's just open that up. And this is a pretty standard reporting tree. If you have multiple business units, in this case my first segment is my division. That's what it's called. And so I've used that to create a dimension value set so that I have multiple divisions rolling into this top administration. So let's take a look at that. And you can see there's corporate, admin, and accounting. And you can see it's the first three segments. And so here it's defaulting to account. If I take it to division, here's where it's telling me. So you pick your dimension, the segment of your general ledger, which is now called a dimension, and then you just pick the range. So from corporate plus admin plus accounting. I just rolled it into one line or one branch in my reporting tree. And now I can apply, as you know, I can apply this reporting tree to any report that I want, and it's going to break that out in the way that I've indicated in my tree. In this case, sales, service, consulting, and purchasing are going to be stated individually, but corporate, admin, and accounting, so 000, 100, and 200, are going to roll up into one line for administration. So let's take a look. And I'll go ahead and pull up that report. And I'm going to actually show my reporting tree here, and we're just going to pick admin. I think we can be pretty confident that these are coming through correctly, but I just want to show you on the administration here. And I think benefits has multiple divisions. And so here you can see 100 and 200 are combined here together in this particular line as being benefits and other expenses under administration. So it's rolled those all in using the dimension value set for that division and applying that to the tree. All right. I'm going to stop and check with Lisa and see if we have any questions.
I do not see, oh wait, someone does have their hand raised. Teresa Mead, I'm going to unmute your line and you can ask your question. Teresa, can you hear us?
Well, if that doesn't work, you can always type your question into the chat box.
Teresa, are you there? Nope. Okay, I'm going to mute your line then again. And there are no questions in the question box. Oh, wait, there is one. We have one. Actually, we have a couple. Okay. When will the export be fixed such that formulas will be exported to Excel?
So that, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that I don't know that it's broken. It might be just how they intended it to be. So that, I don't have an answer for you on that. We probably have to look at the roadmap and see what's planned for future releases.
Okay, and then the next one is when can we link to Forecaster?
And that's not really something that we're going to be talking about today either. For those kind of future questions, you know, when are they going to add this? When is this going to happen? I would suggest that you communicate with your account manager for those questions, and your account manager will get the answer for you. We're really talking about specific functionality today as opposed to what might be happening in the future. We're kind of talking about now. So, you know, I don't have answers to those types of questions, but we can certainly find them out for you. So communicate with your account manager, and they'll find out the answer for you.
Okay, that looks like all we have right now.
Okay. All right, so I am going to see where we are next here. All right, so we went a little beyond the basics. We're going to go into the weeds here on this forecast report. And I want to there's a specific capability that I want to focus on with that. I'm actually going to generate the report first, so that when we're looking at what will be our column definition, you'll kind of have some context for what I'm talking about. So what I have here is a report that is showing me actual for January, February, March, and April. And actually, let me show my header here. There we go. That way you can see that. So I ran this report for April 30th. And it's showing me January, February, March, and April as actual. And everything for the future, it's showing as budget. And often your first thought when you see a report like this is that you have to go in every month and remember to move whatever month your current month is, whatever month you're running this for, you have to move it, the type of information that you're pulling, you have to change it from actual to budget. I'm sorry, budget to actual. And actually, Management Reporter will do this all for you automatically. So if you have reports today where you have to go in and manipulate based on the period, where you have to move it from budget to actual, for example, you can stop doing that. And I'm going to show you how to make it do that for you. So I'm just going to minimize this. And where this is happening, I've just got my standard income statement row. I use this in a lot of my reports. But I've got a special column defined here, and I'm just going to open up that column. And I'm also going to hide my navigation pane here because I think we need more real estate on the screen for this. So what I've got here is a column that is using conditional columns. So in the first column, my column type is always going to be FD for financial dimension because that's what I'm pulling, financial information, not a description. It's financial information. But for every period in this year, I actually have defined two columns, one for actual and one for budget. So here's period 1 actual, here's period 1 budget. Period 2 actual, period 2 budget. But I think I've got 26 columns total on this particular report, and 24 of those are, my year, so actual and budget. The way that I get these to decide which one it needs to print is using this print control here. So you can see, and I didn't type this in, I picked it from a list. And what I did, if you look at the conditional print options, I have chosen to print actual only if the period is less than or equal to the base period. Well, in my example, my base period is April. So if it's less than or equal to April, print actual. And so I do that for every actual column that I have. Every column that says actual, I'm going to use, you'll see it uses this print if less than or equal to base. Okay? Hopefully you're following me. For my budget, I'm going to open this one. Print only if period is greater than the base period. So I picked that one from this list. And you can see it goes the other way too. Less than or equal to, or equal. So that's how I'm getting those budget numbers. And you'll notice that that includes my formatting, my column format too. So I'm saying I want to print the header text actual, and I want to spread that from column B, which is going to be period 1, to my base period. And then for my budget, I want to spread it from base plus 1 to the end. And that's how I'm getting this report, and all I have to do is what I would normally do on a report, change my base period or accept my base period at runtime. And it knows what to print based on this date that I've chosen. So this is typically the kind of report that you'll see with that, but you may have other kinds of reports that you are going in and changing and reformatting every month because you don't know about the conditional columns. So hopefully that will help you. Because that's kind of a complex one, Lisa, I'm going to pause for a second and see if we have any questions on doing the conditional reports.
There are a couple of questions. One is, can analytical accounts be pulled into Management Reporter?
Yes, they can. You have to use the data mart for that. So yes, they can.
And the next one, and we may need to get back to this person because it's kind of specific, but do you know how to create a trailing 12 months report where we show 12 months and each month is a trailing 12 months number?
Yeah, you could. I think that conditional formatting might do that. That is pretty specific. We'd probably want to talk more with you about that, but I think we probably could. We'd have to sit and map it out, and one of our consultants may have already done that. So we wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel if we didn't have to.
And let's see, the next one says, I have that same forecast report, but I have a small format problem. Every period displays December as the period name. Let me page down here.
So is that it? Check and make sure that you've got the right auto text showing there. So if the amounts are correct and it's just the headings that are wrong, you need to check the headings and make sure you've got the right auto text code in here. And I'm using calendar month short for this. And so it's going to show, January, Jan, Feb, March, that sort of thing. So I think that's what the problem is.
The next one, can you show the column header again for the spread from to spread to?
Yep. So on the actual, I'm starting with B, which makes sense because that's the first column here, and I'm spreading this to the base. So my base period, which in my case is April. So from that first period, which is January in my world, through my base period, which is indicated when I generate my report, in this case April, those are all going to say actual, and it's going to spread that. It's going to center it, and it's going to spread it from B to base. And then on the budget side, it's going to spread it from base plus 1, so in my example here, May, through the end of the budget column. So my last budget column is Y, so it's going to Y. Let me just show you that here. You can see this is an enormous column here. So my last one is Y, and then Z is my year-to-date total. Let's get back here. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions?
Yep, the next one is someone is on GP 2010, and they're asking how to roll up the divisional budgets into one company budget for the forecast report.
So you've got multiple companies, is what it sounds like. And so you'd probably want to use a reporting tree for that. So that's typically the way we do consolidations in through Management Reporter. So you'd want to create a reporting tree that consolidated multiple companies. I have an example here. And then you would use that reporting tree you would attach that reporting tree to your forecast report. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
The next one is, can you pull vendor information into Management Reporter?
You can. And the way that you can do that, let me think here if I have a good example for you. Let's just look at this. Let's look at my income statement here. I think I have this generated out. Yeah. So this is just an example of an income statement. And what you can do with this, just to show you, you can have, here's a vendor and an invoice number that I've associated with, that it's showing here on my income statement report. And the way it got there was in my column. I chose to have attributes showing. So there are a number of attributes that you can you can use in your reports. And so this is, instead of a column type, financial dimension or calculation, this is an attribute. So just to show you, it's kind of towards the bottom of the list here. And once you choose an attribute, you'll be provided with a list of attributes that you can include on the report. The vendor is the originating master record name. The invoice number is the originating document number. So you can see there are a number of things that you can include here, and you can even filter. So I could come in here and say, I only want to see year-to-date for a particular originating master record name, or whatever it is, whatever attribute it is that you're using. So yes, you can do that. You can bring the vendor name and invoice number, among some other attributes as well, into a report. It has to be a detailed report, of course. That's the only place that we get those, is from the transaction detail.
Okay, we have a hand raised. Joanna, I'm going to unmute your line. Joanna, can you hear me? And what's your question? Okay. Well, if you want to type your question in, I'm going to go ahead and mute your line back. And at this point, I don't see any other questions, Tammy.
Okay. Then I'm going to keep going. So what we just looked at was the forecast report. So that was pretty intense. I just want to take a little break and talk about some other things here before we dig back into a complex report again. I want to talk about report groups. And I'm going to come down here in my navigation pane and just choose this report group. And you can see I've created one here called Webinar. And what a report group does is it allows you to put multiple reports and have them generate together. So this might be a reporting package that you generate out to specific individuals, or it might be different work papers or supporting documents that you create. It might be based on a period. So every month you might generate a report group. So you can see I've got two reports here in my report group, and I've picked the order that they show up in. So first is the wildcard example, and then the dimension value set row example. I can determine how this report is going to be generated, and so it's going to be generated. It's called Webinar, and I'm just generating it to my report library. I could generate it to SharePoint if I wanted to as well. And I can also generate it to the specific report locations. So I'm overriding this and just generating it to one. And so what this looks like once you've generated it, I'm just going to bring up my report. You can see it's got these tiles, one for each report. Now remember, security applies here. So if you've got a tree and someone doesn't have access to a particular report, they're not going to see it. But just to show you, it just brings up the report. And this is the exact same report that we saw before. And the same with the dimension value set report. So those are report groups. And if you have you know, a specific reporting package that you generate every month, you can just click Add and pull in those reports that you need. You don't have to do any sort of chaining or have separate report chains based on you know, which reports you want to print. You just put them in a report group. You can have as many as you want, and just let it generate every month instead of doing things onesie twosie. All right, so we took a breath. The last couple of reports that I want to talk to you about are not that complicated, but I think they can really help you, especially in one of them, especially in reconciling. So I created this report called Balance Check, and it uses some of the concepts that we've talked about today. So in my row here, I have a balance check row. Notice that I'm using the account category, and so Management Reporter will look at not only the structure of my chart of accounts, so the division, the account department, it will also look at the account category, which is one of those required fields on your account maintenance form in GP. And so that's where you drop it into a particular bucket. It's a current liability, or it's a employee expense, or it's a salary expense, whatever those categories are that you have set up and defined in GP. This is where, to respond to the management reporter question, the analytical accounting question, this is also where you would see your analysis dimensions. So they would just be viewed as another dimension attached to your general ledger. So it makes it pretty easy. The interaction is no different than what we're seeing today, where we just double-click and pick them from a list. Exactly the same. But I wanted to just show you here. So we've been into dimension value sets, and we saw how they how to set them up. And you can see here I've got accounts receivable plus depreciation plus, which is usually a credit balance, plus amortization of intangible assets, etc. And these are account categories. And I've kind of taken them high level here and said assets are receivables, depreciation, amortization. Here's the list. And I just picked them from the list. I can have as many as I need. And then I did liabilities next because that's the way I think. But here's equity. And then liabilities. And again, these are just my account categories that I have defined in GP. Here's all the revenue and expense categories. So let's take a look at the report that I was able to generate from that. Don't pay attention to the numbers, they're demo data, but it does balance, so that's a good thing, I guess. I said I wanted everything with the account category of assets. And here's all of my assets. And then liabilities. And then nothing for equity. I have negative assets and no equity. I think I have some problems here. But it balances. And so you can see here's all my revenue and my expense accounts. And then what I've done is I've just done a check to make sure that my assets and my liabilities they balance out to 0. And so that's just using the account category. And so it's not this huge report that you have to create and pick, wildcards or ranges. Just create your account sets and use or reuse them at whatever level you need within your reports. All right, so the last one I want to talk about here is cash flow. And everybody always wants to have a cash flow report. It's something that there are examples that come with GP, or I'm sorry, with Management Reporter, but you kind of have to make it your own. And so you can see here, pretty typical what we would expect. With a report like this where there are lots of rows or lots of ranges of accounts, it's sometimes a good idea when you're generating a report to see where those accounts came from, what accounts those numbers come from, and you can even see what rows are associated with them. And as well, I'm going to go to my column here. So this one we're looking at the row and the column. In this example, I'm generating a couple of non-printing rows. So keep in mind that if you need to do calculations and just present the results, you can do that. You can you can do your here's the beginning balance. I'm saying D minus C gives me my year to date, and then I've got my row. So I'm saying show me the row definition code and show me the account codes that relate to that row definition. This is really handy when you're creating a new report as well. And if I can just leave this on here, and when I'm comfortable that it's correct, I can come in here and throw an NP on that and turn it into a non-printing column. But let's take a look at what this is going to show me. So all I'm seeing is my current period and year to date. But then it's showing me on row 80, this is the range of accounts that are generating these numbers. And I can click into that and look at those totals. And it's showing me the rows and the specific accounts that it's using to arrive at each of these numbers. So again, when you're creating a new report, and you might be having trouble, you can't figure out why things aren't coming out the way you want them to, or even on an existing report, drop this row and account type onto your column, and that way you can see where things are coming from, and you can start to understand. Maybe if I'm looking at this, I see an asset in here somewhere. Maybe that shouldn't be there. Maybe I've got my range defined incorrectly, or whatever it is. It makes it easier to be able to find problems and understand exactly what is on that report. All right, so I'm going to pause the last time for questions.
We have a few. Some of these may be too specific. If so, we can answer them offline. But the first one is going back to the forecaster report. The forecast report.
Yes.
Can you show your column Y again? And they're getting some kind of an error message, so that might be a little specific.
Yeah, I can show you column Y. All column Y is the last budget column. So once again, I'm going to fold up my, come on, operator error. So B is the beginning of actual, and for everyone I have actual budget. So actual budget, actual budget, actual budget, and this continues all the way to column Y, which is my last budget column for period 12. So hopefully that answers your question.
And if not, Tammy, you can send something else and we'll have someone follow up with you.
Yeah, definitely. Here's our contact information. So
The next one is, how do you find out if any account is missing or duplicated in your report?
So within, let me get back over here. So if I look at under settings, wait a minute, output and distribution. Where did that go? Report duplicate accounts. So that's going to show you where you've got duplicate accounts in your report.
Okay, the next one is, I've been using the exact type of report for our income statement. I get a different number when I use periods 1 through 12 versus year to date. What might be causing this?
So if you're using periods 1 through 12 versus your, throw that row and account column on that. That's the perfect use for that. So again, let me bring back my navigation pane. So what I'm talking about is these two columns here. Just put them on the end of your column definition, row and account, and generate your report and look at the accounts, or look at the numbers and the associated accounts that are coming through on that. That's going to tell you, you'll be able to identify what's happening. You might have, it's possible that in your row you're crossing account ranges potentially. So you've got two lines that are pulling the same account, possibly, or you've got some other restrictions that are set up. But if you use that row and account, it will help you figure out things like that.
And that is all the questions that we have right now.
Okay. Well, there's my contact information. Actually, there was. There we go. My contact information and Lisa's contact information. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We may end up putting you in touch with your consultant, because sometimes they know more about what you're doing, obviously, than we would. And so they may be able to give you some specific answers as well.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for your time today, and Tammy, thank you for presenting, and hopefully everyone will be able to join us for the next webinar that we have. Thanks everyone.